Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining me today on your holidays, I'm sure. So I think the big question that everyone has on their mind is, are we going to be releasing our mainnet on time? So the short summary to that question is, yes, we will be launching the network on time by the 31st. Let me give you a more elaborate answer to that. So we've lost a significant amount of time chasing down a communications issue. I discussed this last week. We've spent approximately 3 weeks chasing down this one particular issue, and it's cost us a lot of time in testing other aspects of the system, as you might imagine. Nonetheless, we believe that issue has now been identified and resolved. We had to switch out a library because one of the libraries we were using had its own issues. And we've had to essentially solve and build in some innovative solutions to this communication issue. So for example, the communication between our nodes is using UDP. And we've had to essentially implement some ideas from TCP, but in a connectionless UDP fashion. So we're taking these packets, we're fragmenting them into small chunks, about 256 bytes, and then streaming them across the nodes, and then rebuilding those packets in an ordered way. And then there's compression and decompression on each side. But also we're returning acknowledgements back to the sender. So we've had to essentially implement some of the ideas of TCP over UDP so that we get the performance that we need in terms of node-to-node communication. So, this is currently being tested at the moment. I was just on the phone with the team a few minutes ago. So, essentially what we will be releasing on the 31st will be the network, except it won't be bug-free. It won't be where we had hoped it would be. At this point in time, we'd hoped to be in a position where we had begun deploying the network, but because of some of these issues, we're not in that place. We're not in that place yet. So, as it looks right now, everything's on track for us. We believe we're at the 99% mark, and I think that there's very few projects that can say that a few days ahead of their deadline, or even at this point in time, on December 28th, 2018. That they are 99% of the way to their mainnet, right? We certainly can. We've released code. You could take a look at what we've built and how it works on GitHub. So essentially that's a fair representation of our current condition. We've changed some things this week as we've worked on fixing this particular bug. But nonetheless, we do expect to be delivering on time on the 31st. However, it won't be bug-free. Now, we will be releasing periodic updates, and we will be, releasing periodic bug fixes as we encounter the bugs and as those bugs get resolved. But I think it's important that we deliver on time, and that's what we're shooting to. So that being said, that's pretty much everything that we've got going on this week. The team has been excruciatingly busy, very, very hard at work. They worked through Christmas. I'm tremendously grateful to the team for giving up Christmas to get the network out on time. As I've said, we've been chasing a nefarious bug for about 3 weeks, and this bug isn't even in the code that we wrote. It's in the underlying libraries that we're using and how they're interacting with one another and so forth. So yeah, open to questions. If you want to put them in the Telegram group, please, do so. Will we see a third-party code audit soon? Absolutely. We will have to have a third-party code audit before we go anywhere near integrating tokens and so forth. So yes, there will be a third-party. There has to be a third-party code audit before we would ever even consider going live. For security reasons and so forth. This is just standard practice. So yes, that will come when we're closer to integrating tokens. As you know, this release doesn't have token integration. How many other projects do you guys know of that are at a place where at the end of this year they're they've either released a mainnet or imminently releasing a mainnet? I'd love to hear some feedback on that. It's my understanding that we're one of the few. S is asking, would we consider a buyback of ETH or BTC? Potentially, we might. It's something that we haven't thought about yet. Will we have a live stream event celebrating the launch of the mainnet? I think we will, but I don't want to do that prematurely on the 31st. I'd rather we get to a place where we've ironed out some of those bugs and we've reached stability before we declare mission complete. So I think that will come probably when we actually get tokens integrated. It's probably the right time to do that. But on this particular launch, this is, as you know, the alpha launch of our mainnet. I would prefer to be more cautious. Johan is asking, what's the next steps after New Year's? So there's a lot that will be happening in the new year. With me personally, I'm in, at the very beginning of the new year. I'm going to CES in Las Vegas. That's why I'm here in the States. The team will be working on several things. We've identified, the development team, that is. We've identified several areas of optimization. So we're going to be making some serious changes to our storage tier, which will substantially improve the performance of our storage tier. To give you an idea of where we are today, we are achieving our targets of more than 1,000 transactions a second across multiple tenants. But we want to see that grow substantially. In terms of ingesting transactions, we're seeing more than 4,000 transactions a second because those transactions are ingested in memory. So the network is performing as per the spec, but we've identified areas of opportunity to improve performance. So naturally, those are things that we want to implement. The second thing that they'll be working on is obviously the token integration. And then there's some specific use cases and areas that we want to concentrate our efforts on in terms of developing so that we can go after those opportunities. So that's the development team. Shabir is working on continuing to work on relationships and partnerships. That's an ever ongoing matter. And I'll be doing more of that myself in the new year. We look to be hiring more people in the new year and taking on and growing our team. And we're currently in the midst of rebuilding the websites. So there's some external contractors that are working on that. So hopefully soon, within a month or two, we'll have a new site release. So there's a lot of things coming, and there's a lot of things that we've got planned essentially. Super Cyan is saying, can we concentrate on generating revenues? Absolutely. That's exactly what Shabir works on all the time. It's working on relationships that bring meaningful value and ultimately revenue to the product. Thank you, Johan, for the question. How's everybody's Christmas been? What have you guys been up to? Please do share. So just to give you some insight into where you're going to be able to see the mainnet, it will be deployed to explorer.sparkster.network when it's up. So if you just look out for explorer.sparkster.network, you'll be able to take a look at the blockchain explorer, essentially, with a network explorer. We're still in a stage where this is internally being tested and run. Over the next few days, we'll be deploying this publicly, and it'll be publicly accessible. There's a few people writing questions, so I'm just waiting for those to come in. I believe I received some questions in advance. Let me just take a look at those. Yes. So what's the upside of launching the mainnet without tokens? The benefit of launching the mainnet without tokens is that we promised that we would deliver the mainnet by December 31st, and we're doing everything humanly possible to ensure that we meet that deadline. But more than just meeting a deadline, it gives people the opportunity to interact with our network and essentially try the network free of charge, and gives us the opportunity to go out there and show people how our network works, and then talk to them about developing pilot programs and specific use cases on the network. So it benefits us probably more than it benefits other people. The next question I received is, will the network be composed of only 21 nodes? Does that mean that there will be only 21 masternodes? No. There can be an unlimited number of masternodes. In each masternode group, there will only be 21 active masternodes. Now, what does that mean? That means that, if you have a pool of inactive masternodes, meaning that they're not the masternodes for that time period, then they're waiting to be assigned into a time period. So there's a voting process that occurs every hour. And essentially the masternodes that are, all masternodes can participate in the voting process. If they win this voting process, they get assigned into an active masternode group. So that's essentially how it works. And from that perspective is decentralized. Today, the alpha mainnet will be launched with one mainnet group. In the future, there'll be more mainnet groups, essentially to help us scale TPS, if you will. But a masternode group has 21 active masternodes, and those masternodes are responsible for coordinating transactions across the network. The third question is, at what point does Sparkster need, the Sparkster's network need X masternodes for X TPS and scalability? So I've kind of answered that, right? So the network that we're deploying today is essentially showing that a cell can produce 1,000 TPS, that a masternode, one masternode group is significantly higher than that. So one masternode group can coordinate across, several cells. And we will be introducing multiple masternode groups. But, our focus right now is optimization. So one of the things is that, you heard me talk earlier about UDP and implementations that we're doing on top of UDP. This is extremely low level. It's not very common that people are developing at this low level. In fact, other projects that I've looked at that are developing in other languages, I think I even saw, for example, that there's people that are developing in Python, there's people that are developing in Ruby and so forth, right? It's probably almost never that they would be working at such a low level. But because we're such a highly performance-driven environment, we chose to use C++ so that we do have that extremely low-level granular control so that we can make changes. So one of the changes that we made this week is to choose a different type of queuing system. So when transactions are arriving into the memory of our masternodes, they get queued before they hit the disks themselves, right? And so, so we're able to ingest at say 4, 5, maybe even 10,000 transactions a second. But then committing to disk is impacted by the speed of the disk. About 100 megabytes a second is the speed of the disk. So depending on how you configure those disks, if they're JBOD connected to multiple controllers, that impacts the performance of the storage tier. But we're focusing so granular that we're looking at the type of queuing that we use. Should we use a standard queue, priority queuing? Priority queuing reorders the objects in the queue based, for example, on timestamps or whatever. So we have an extremely low level granular control over how things are functioning in the network. And this is necessary both for the short term and the long term, because we're building an extremely high performance network. So it gives you an idea of some of the things that we're actually doing, and so forth. Super Saiyan wants to know, where can he play with Sparkster? He wants to show his little sister the drag and drop features of Sparkster, and he's excited to use it. That's coming soon, so we'll announce when that's going to be released. CryptoFOMO says he's expecting a detailed roadmap for 2019. We'll be providing a roadmap for sure. Crypto Penguin is asking, what's the email address to send ideas to implement on the blockchain? You can send those to hello@sparkster.me. Hello@sparkster.me. Johan wants to know, after the mainnet is released, how will the marketing team work to bring in new marketing and awareness to Sparkster? So there's several people that we're already talking to about potential use cases and things that that they might be able to build on our network. So that's the first place we're going. But we are working with, so for example, we've contracted a company called Marlin PR that will be working on essentially evangelizing and telling the world about what our network does and so forth. It's important that that's deployed once we've reached stability with the network, which, as you can imagine, with anything that's first released and first deployed, there are bugs and there's things to work out in the very beginning. That was the case with Ethereum. It's the case, I'm sure, with it was the case with EOS. It's the case with all networks when they're first deployed. Super Science says masternode concept sounds like layer 2 blockchain. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but maybe you can elaborate. Yogi Bear 123 says there is a scam group passing themselves off as Sparkster with a giveaway. I'm not aware of them, but if you can let me know about them, we can potentially do something to notify whatever network that they're running on. How much speed? Sunil is asking, how much speed have we achieved in internal testing? So we've achieved over 1,000 TPS on the storage nodes. We've achieved, and so for example, if you look at just pure ingestion in a memory basis, we've achieved over 4,000 TPS on a 2-core machine. On a 4-core machine, we've seen that go over 6,000 TPS. So, very high levels of TPS. Masternodes are ingesting it at significantly higher than that. So from a performance perspective, we're seeing good things. Super Science says Python is good for ecosystem rather than C++. That may be the case, but in what we're doing, it's like I said, performance is what's key to our network. And that's why we've chosen C++, because we have that extremely fine granular control over how the networking works, how the communication works, how queuing works, how memory is used, when memory is dumped. We have extremely fine level granular control that you don't often have with other languages. Johan says, please tell us you'll be able to have at least one glass of champagne on New Year's Eve. We hope to be celebrating on New Year's Eve. At the end of the day, there's obviously a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we get this right, and we're working around the clock, literally around the clock, as hard as we possibly can to do that, and that's what's important. Just give me a moment, guys. Just give me a moment, guys. Sorry about that, guys. Any other questions I might answer for you? Apologies for that, guys. Super Sarion saying C++ is difficult to work with. In terms of speed, it's good, but it gets complicated using it. There's no doubt about that. It's sophisticated. You know, with power comes a great deal of complexity. And yeah, we're certainly experiencing some of those challenges. But what's important is that we're delivering a high performant network, because that's at the core of what we're building. It's essential to our mission that the network is high performance. So some people in the past have asked us, you know, why is it that you know, what's the big deal about this 10 million TPS claim that we've made in the past? So the TPS is critical, because without the TPS performance, you know, we will experience significant limitations in how the network will be able to support large numbers of users over time. If you think about, you know, the way that Amazon works, you know, a company is limited to their own set of servers. When you're operating in a blockchain environment, and so if you were to calculate, you know, what is the TPS across Amazon's entire data center or their set of data centers, it's millions and millions of TPS. In our case, the 10 million TPS is essentially a practical limit, but not a theoretical limit. There's no theoretical limit in the TPS our network can achieve, because we've got true isolation, and that gives us true parallelism, if you will. So, you know, one of the key differences between what we're doing, we're facilitating people to build and run software in a decentralized environment, on a decentralized cloud. We're not facilitating, for example, transfer of currency or coins or money or whatever it might be, like many other networks are. So they don't have the same requirements. If you're building software and you know, every time you get into an Uber and you get out of an Uber, right? Every time you make a rating, you know, you leave a comment or whatever, all of those are transactions. So to give you a comparison, if you were looking at purchasing something on Amazon, if you add 10 products to your basket or to your cart, those are 10 software transactions. But you may only make one payment at the end of the day, or at the end of that transaction, right? So that's one payment, but you know, many software transactions. And so this is why it's crucial that our network is extremely high performance and very high throughput. And that's why we've decided to use C++ and build things the way we have. It's core to our mission, if you will. Gabby says that you know, she's watching our AMA after a long time. Can I recap on token releases, exchange partnerships, and other details? So there's no releases that are occurring this year. You know, we'll begin talking about where we stand with the release of the token and what our thoughts on that are next year. In terms of partnerships, you know, our partners are the ones that we've already announced. At least those are the ones that we're talking about. So those will be with Credits, with Utrust, with ARM, with Libellium, you know, and we have a collaboration with the University of Cambridge. And so these are the ones that we've spoken about previously. Johan's asking, have I heard about any new projects that have released in December on exchanges and how they've managed? No, we've been so deeply engrossed in delivering the technology that this is not something that we've been following. But if you have any insight, and if you could give me some feedback on that, I'd love to hear. Borislav is asking, why does Sparkster.me load so slow? Do you think we can change this, or it's not a priority for now? Well, one of the first things that happens is there's a check for essentially DDoS, a DDoS prevention check that occurs that takes 5 or 7 seconds before you get access to the site. We've experienced a few DDoS attacks in the past, and this is one of the measures that we've taken to protect against that. So that's probably why you're experiencing the slowdown, is because of measures that we have in place for the DDoS protection, if you will. Superstar Yan's asking, can someone use Sparkster like they use AWS, creating virtual machines, running software from the marketplace? Yes, except you don't need to create virtual machines. It's more along the lines of FAS or AWS Lambda, where you're building functions and then those functions spin up and execute across the network, rather than having to worry about containerizing them or spinning up virtual machines and so forth. He's also asking if I thought about creating an STO that can be utilized by the masses as it being a security. I don't see any issues with a utility token being used by the masses, so long as there's true and real functional utility. So if you go to sparkster.me/FAQ, you can learn about or read about the utility of the tokens. But essentially, the tokens are integral to the functioning of a safe and scalable network. People contribute resources because of the tokens, but also it enables us to ensure that we can keep bad actors out of the system, right? Because if you're caught cheating, your stake is taken because we're using proof of stake, if you will. Someone once compared this to a proof of work miner having his entire farm burnt down if they're caught cheating. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits. And it's also more energy efficient and so forth. So Sparkster.me/FAQ talks about our token utility. And from the legal conversations I've had, we don't perceive any challenges in widespread use of this. Johan says that he hasn't heard of any projects that have released their tokens, so that's a sign that we've done a good job by not releasing tokens. I think that if we'd released tokens, earlier, we have to make. If we'd released tokens earlier in a declining market, right? There's just no confidence in the market for people to be able to participate. That's not a function of us, it's a function of just general conditions. But I think if you look at where we stand from your perspective as token holders, by the time the tokens come out, the network will be released, right? That's one of the biggest commitments that we made to you guys as a community. So there's significantly less risk on your part. You have a functional product for the use of your tokens. From the perspective that many of you participated in our token sale before we had even done a TPS test, right? We'd won the pitching contest in Amsterdam, and many of you had approached us to participate in our token sale. Well, if you look at where we are now, right? We conducted the 52,000 TPS test I believe it was in July, and then we had the crowd sale. Since then, we've released code. The network will be out. So over the course of this process, there's been a dramatic and substantial de-risking of our token. So from a rational perspective, if we're rational participants, certainly there's less risk in owning and holding Sparkster tokens at this point in time. Joe Crypto is asking, when tokens are listed in exchange? Belina said potentially February. Is that true? We'd like this to be as soon as possible, right? So, we're looking to see if February's plausible and feasible, but we'll be talking more about this next year. Gabby says, thanks for the updates. Appreciate the hard work. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the support to our community. Tuti says, just a recommendation. He thinks the website should be visually redesigned. Ion and Icon websites are very good visual design. Maybe we could learn from them. I fully agree with you that we are actually going through a visual redesign, and it's with a designer at the moment to kind of provide us with some concepts to go off of. There's something that Niru is actually coordinating, so I will let her know about Ion and Icon. Thank you for that. Super Sarian again is saying, so that I mentioned Sparkster Marketplace. People can run applications from other cloud marketplaces like AWS, Azure. Is it possible to connect to them? So you can't take something that's on somebody else's marketplace and run it natively on our network. It has to be, firstly, this isn't this is more akin to FAS, right? And so what would run in a containerized environment somewhere else wouldn't work in our environment, because we're not an environment for running containers or spinning up containers. We're an environment for building applications and running applications that are built in a functional way with, essentially functions that form the core components of the network. However, what you're running inside of our network can very much interact with things outside of our network. So if you've got applications or things that are running in AWS, there's no reason why you couldn't facilitate two-way communication between those two environments. All right. So any other questions before we wrap up? I appreciate all the excellent questions, in particular the technical questions. Hey, Joe, I've just answered that a few minutes ago. All right, guys, let's leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Have a lovely New Year's and have a lovely weekend. And I look forward to speaking to you guys next week. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye-bye.